Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something, and today a whole lot of everything. Older sibling was like, I think this show is going to go into 2 days, but we'll try to just keep it small, keep it light, and keep it to at least 60 minutes. I know. But anyways, so yesterday I said I wanted to spice it up a little bit, spook it up a little bit. And so I'm going to do, so I was saying, maybe I'll share some ghost stories from Southern California or San Diego, but I think I'll save that for another day, because I think I'm going to go full balls to the wall on that one and do like San Diego, Orange County, and LA. So LA alone could have its own horror stories, but there's a lot. But also San Diego has a lot, so maybe we'll make it a series one week. I don't know. But anyways, I figured this is the Aloha Perspective, so we're going to start with Hawaii. Yes, Hawaii. Hawaii has, wow. This place is not void of ghost stories. I mean, as I was watching this, I kind of went down the ghosty rabbit hole last night on YouTube. And I was watching all the Hawaii stuff, right? Including like the HPD Museum on Veritania Street is haunted. Things move that should not be able to move. What else? I just went down the rabbit hole, but the guy, they had a group called 808 Ghosts. I don't know if they still exist, because this video was pretty old. But as he said, we have more than just, fun, sun, and surf. We have legends, we have ghosts, we have stories. So let's dive into some of these, okay? So the 7 creepiest urban legends in Hawaii, and ghost stories from Hawaii. So, I don't know who this is supposed to be a picture of, but yikes. Okay, so anyways, Hawaii's, I'm just gonna read it. This is from AmericanGhostWalks.com, AmericanGhostWalks.com. All right, and if you want to go on there, they have like stories from all over the place. So apparently, this is a corporation that runs ghost tours in a lot of main cities. I love that, Sammy. Woo, Hawaiian creepiness. I love it. Yeah, baby, let's go. So, Hawaii's natural beauty and welcoming spirit are undeniable, but there's a spooky side to the islands that locals know all too well. Ghost stories and urban legends have been passed down for generations, giving the Aloha State a rich folklore of supernatural events. Whether it's haunted highways or restless spirits, Hawaii has plenty to offer those fascinated by the paranormal. So quick facts about Hawaii's supernatural side. Ancient Hawaiians built special paths called spirit roads that were only to be used by spirits and priests. Hawaii's first documented ghost story dates back to 1825. The banyan trees in Hawaii are often considered gateways between the spirit world and ours. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a banyan tree in real life. Well, anyways, I'll get to that in a second. Many Hawaiian families still practice the tradition of blessing new buildings to ward off negative spirits. That should be a thing, period. And Hawaii's state capitol building was built with large open-air entrances to allow spirits to pass through freely. I was wondering why it was built like that. Anyways, I've been in the governor's office. It's pretty cool. So, anyway, before I start, when they were talking about the banyan trees, so I didn't always know I had a gift, right? But it didn't just pop into me one day. It's something I carried through me my whole life. And, something that older sibling helped really kind of pull out of me. And so, that being said, she helped open me up. But when I was a kid, banyan trees used to scare the shit out of me. And I don't know why. I mean, they're just like these looming things, right? They're kind of spooky. Like, I know Sammy would know this. The trees in Georgia that really have that beautiful overhang. I mean, banyan trees are beautiful. And they have these vines that if you're a kid, you can swing from. I mean, be careful, because you never know if they're loose or not. Yank it first. But yeah, you can swing from. But so hearing that Hawaiians think that it is considered a gateway between the spirit world and ours, I am not surprised at all. I am absolutely not surprised at all. So today is the day where I just take off the mask, pretend I'm, the normal mask, and come out as me, just me, metaphysical, spiritual, believing, gifted me. All right. So I'm sure some of you have seen this. my thumb got so bad I went to urgent care. So, you know, I'm only saying this because I talk a lot with my hands and I keep seeing it and it's really awkward. But anyways, I left with a present. So apparently I have something called Degervain's tendonitis. So it's overuse of this part of my hand. So anyway, let's get going. We have about 6 stories to get through. So, oh, wait, sorry. There was one thing I wanted to pull up because I thought it was rather interesting. And it does have to do with the night marchers, but we'll get, you know, let's get back to the night marchers in a bit. All right, while I pull all this stuff up. So, the Green Lady of Wahiawa. Oahu's Wahiawa Botanical Garden is home to the Green Lady, one of Hawaii's most chilling urban legends. Covered in green moss and seaweed, this ghostly figure is said to be the mother searching for her lost child, whom she reportedly lost in the garden many years ago. Locals claim to have seen her wandering the paths of the garden or lurking near schools in the area. Children who walk through the garden alone often report feeling watched, as if the Green Lady is silently following them, her presence marked by an eerie silence. Scary. Scary. I have to tell you, because I am a bloodline Hawaiian, and I used to spend every summer there. And of course, as a kid, you know, you could say boo, and it would scare me. And but I never heard about the Green Lady of Wahiawa, so that's fascinating. All right, number 3, the Faceless Woman of Waikiki. So I heard this, when I first heard this story, I heard it was a drive-in. Okay, so this is another urban legend, and nobody knows. But in the heart of Waikiki, where tourists flock to enjoy the sun and sand, there's a more unsettling figure who haunts the night. The Faceless Woman. Okay, sorry. The Faceless Woman is said to appear in mirrors, elevators, and sometimes even on the beach itself. Described as a woman with no facial features, she reportedly materializes out of nowhere, startling those who cross her path. One story tells of a hotel guest who saw the Faceless Woman in her bathroom mirror, only to turn around and find no one there. This eerie urban legend has left its mark on one of the busiest tourist spots in Hawaii. Now, here's the thing. So, I know it's an urban legend, okay, but when a hotel guest reports this, I tend to kind of lean into the fact that it might be true, because why would somebody report this? Now, we're assuming that, you know, because now every skeptic in the world will come out and say, yeah, but it could just be hearsay. Maybe someone planted that story, and that's very possible. So, I mean, these are just stories that we're not sure to prove. And, you know, if you believe in ghosts, great. Come for the excitement and the enjoyment of sharing these stories. If you're a skeptic, just come for the stories. All right. So I'm trying to open this because I found a great story on the night marchers last night, and it was fascinating. There we go. All right. So that one's a bit long, which is why I'm going to save the night marchers for last. So Pele's curse. Now, Pele is the fire goddess of Hawaii, basically the goddess of the volcanoes. She had siblings, but somehow Pele managed to emerge as the prominent one. All right. So love Pele. Nothing but respect. Nothing but respect. I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at me being dumb and hitting everything because this thing is so big and awkward. But anyways, nothing but respect, Pele. Absolutely. So the legend of Pele's curse warns visitors never to take lava rocks, sand, or other natural elements from the Hawaiian Islands. Pele, the goddess of fire and volcanoes, is said to be protective of the land, and taking pieces of it with you invites her wrath. Over the years, countless tourists have mailed back rocks to Hawaii, claiming they were cursed with bad luck after taking them as souvenirs. Everything from failed marriages to accidents and financial ruin has been attributed to this curse, making it one of Hawaii's most widely... Where's the rest of the story? Most widely something urban legends. But you know what? Here's the thing. My aunt, who lives in Maui, she used to work at the... oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the store now. And it's a famous store in Maui. It's like on the road to Hana. And she said every day they receive packages from around the world. And it was always something that belonged to Hawaii. The natural, you know, like whether it was a stone, a rock, some sand. Some people never take the black sand. And here's a tip, okay? While I don't think you should take anything from the islands, if something really calls to you, on the beach. Like maybe you see a shell, maybe you see a rock that, you know, and it feels like it's calling to you. Ask the spirits first. Ask the island spirits, may I have this? And don't just pick it up and say, okay, wait and feel. If you hear nothing, leave it. If you feel something like a warmth within you, then maybe that's them giving you your blessing. All right. So even my aunt said when I picked something up and I was taking it, she's all, did you ask? And I'm all, yes. I said, I asked 3 different spirits just in case. I turned in every 4, I guess, because I turned in every direction. May I? So, you know, because I'm very superstitious. So there are things you do not want to mess with. All right. And even if you're a skeptic, don't test it out. All right. Because bad luck doesn't care. Or, you know, I shouldn't even say bad luck. The protection of the island, whether, you know, you believe in it or not, is genuine. It is a feeling. It is, you know, it belongs where it belongs. And on occasion, maybe you find something and nothing bad happens because you took the proper channels. You made the proper channels. You know, you made the effort to say, hey, may I take this? And if you want, leave something behind in place of it, like almost like a payment of sorts or a sacrifice. So, you know, if it's something that you want that bad. But if it's something that you're like, oh, I got to have this. I got to have this for my collection because I collect something from every single island. No, because Hawaii is not your free souvenir place. All right. And that's pretty much anywhere you go. Ask the guides and the guards, the guardians of the land. All right. Number 5, Morgan's Corner. I have my own stories for Morgan's Corner. Actually, I only have one. But yeah, this is somewhere when I go to Hawaii in March, I really want to find this corner. So Morgan's Corner was named as such because there was a doctor, I believe he lived there from the 20s to the 40s, but he had like a house over on the Nu'uanupali Drive, road. Nu'uanupali Road. So it's the old Pali Road. Now the old Pali Road was how you would get to the other side of the island, but it kind of wrapped around the mountain. And my mom said before they built the main one that people use now, it scared the shit out of her. Okay, she did not like it. I mean, she didn't say it scared the shit out of her. She just said, oh, it scared me. I always closed my eyes because I was so worried. And the winds get really bad up there. Okay, now the old Pali Road is now a lookout. All right. And there is a gate that tells you not to go onto the other side of it and to stay on this side of the gate. But who listens? Okay. I mean, I think they just gave up because the last time I went, which God was 19 years ago, it was, the bars were bent open. So, you know, but it's also a scary place because some people who are just not feeling good about life, you know, have tended to go over the side. So, yeah, that's pretty sad. Sometimes when you go out there, you find flowers, but let me put it this way. The wind can be so bad that you can lean forward and you will not fall down. Okay. You will not fall down. But here we go. Morgan's Corner on Oahu's Old Pali Road is notorious for being one of the most haunted locations in Hawaii. The area is tied to several grim stories, including a murder and a suicide. Over the years, visitors have reported unsettling experiences like hearing disembodied voices, seeing ghostly figures, and feeling unexplained cold touches while passing through. Drivers in the area claim their cars often malfunction, doors lock and unlock on their own, and engines fail without warning, heightening the eerie atmosphere of this already spooky location. So, as I was saying, Morgan's Corner was named after Dr. Morgan, who lived there. Nothing nefarious about Dr. Morgan. I'm not sure why. Maybe because he lived there first, would be my guess. But he lived on this hairpin curve, okay? And it was like, I don't know. It was, you know, what is it that, was it Jan and Dean that sang about it in the 60 Dead Man's Curve? But it's kind of like that if you're speeding, okay? And, you know, as cars became more faster and faster, people just, you know, got ridiculous. So anyways, in 1948, Dr. Morgan's neighbor across the street, Mrs. Therese Wilder, a widow, 68, was murdered by 2 escaped convicts. They were on a work crew and they managed to escape the work crew. and they weren't intending to steal anything. As they said, they just smelled the cooking and wanted food. So they were basically robbing her for provisions because, here's the thing. When you escape a work crew in Hawaii, where do you plan on going? It's an island. Okay. And as a side note, I remember one time when I was visiting, my grandfather was in the hospital and my mom and I were there, and I started laughing because there was a high-speed chase, and my grandmother and my mother, they were news hounds, like older sibling. So there was a high-speed chase, and I just started laughing, and my grandmother's all, "This isn't funny. This is dangerous. People could get hurt." And I said, "I get that. I'm not laughing because there's a high-speed chase. I'm laughing because I'm wondering, where the hell is he going to go? It's an island." And when they both thought about it, I could hear them chuckling. They're both like, "Oh yeah." My mom's like, "Oh yeah, where is he going to go?" At least here in California, when we have a high-speed chase, they're interesting. Although older sibling and I watched one, and because I grew up in San Diego, I knew exactly where this guy was going. He drove himself right to prison. Not on purpose, just didn't know the area. So anyways, Morgan's Corner. So Mrs. Wilder was murdered. And I don't think it was an intentional murder. What happened was they beat her, okay, and they broke her jaw, and then they bound and gagged her, but the gag covered her mouth and her neck, and because she couldn't move, she suffocated to death. So that's horrible. I feel bad for this woman. First, she's a widow, and then somebody breaks into her house just because her cooking smells great. And then, they just leave her for dead. And her gardener is actually the one who found her the next day. So, she lived at 3939 New Uani Poly Road. Now, that's a gated community, but they said once you hit the gated community, that's where her house used to be. And this is where a lot of stuff happens because it's on that curve right across the street from where Dr. Morgan's house used to be. So I'm learning new things when I was looking this up because I didn't even know that Morgan's Corner was named after somebody. Okay. I just thought it was some spooky place when I was growing up where all the urban legends come from. So, in 1949 to 1957, nearly 200 accidents on the sharp curve happened, causing dozens of injuries and deaths. But it's weird. But then they finally straightened out the road a little bit. So it's like, I guess, how long did it have to take them to do that before more people got hurt? And the homicide and the suicide they were talking about, I couldn't find anything on this because, looking up random things, on the internet, even being the internet queen, is not always that easy. But in the 80s, there was a murder there. And in the 90s, there was a suicide there. So, or somebody unalived themselves. I don't know. Can I even say the S word on YouTube anymore? There's so many weird rules now. But anyways, I think I can because nobody watches my show anyway. But anyway, now I'm going to share my story. So I was telling older sibling this last night. So on the way home, and this is interesting too, because when I was thinking about it, I was on the new Poly Highway, not the old one. And, okay, so I can't remember how old I was. I was either 16 or 18, but I want to say I was 16 because my mom wasn't there. And I think when I was 18, I only went to Hawaii for like 3 weeks, after I graduated from high school. So I'm pretty sure it was when I was 16. And my aunt brought us to a wedding, family friend's wedding. I don't know. I told older sibling, I can't remember if they were related or not. But anyways, we went to a wedding on the other side of the island. It was outdoors, beautiful wedding, beautiful day. And on the way home, I was just kind of gazing out the window. So there was this cute boy in the back that was my cousin's friend. And I was like, oh, he's so cute. And blah, blah, blah. He was from Ventura. But no idea what happened to him. But he was my aunt's oldest friend because they used to surf together. So I was just kind of daydreaming about that. But then as I was looking out the window, all of a sudden it's like, huh? I did one of those. And I still remember this plain as day. Is vivid in my mind today. And I saw this sign and it said Morgan's Corner. And I was like, okay, that's weird. That was weird. And I'm thinking to myself, that was weird, right? And my auntie asked me, she's all, are you okay? And I said, yeah. I said, I didn't know Morgan's Corner was right there. And she's all, what do you mean? And she used to call me baby when I was younger. Now it's Shellbell. But she's all, what do you mean, baby? She's all, there's nothing out there. And I'm all, no. I said, seriously, I just saw the sign. And she's all, no, there's no sign out there. And I was like, all right. So I just I gave up because I thought, all right, I'm nuts. All right. And I don't, I was 16. I couldn't drink. So I definitely was sober. But anyways, the next day we went back to go help clean up everything. So of course we had to go back up the poly, which means we had to come back down. And I am telling you, I never took my eyes off that road. From the minute we came out of that tunnel to the minute we saw city in front of us, I never took my eyes off the side of that road. And that sign was not there. The same sign I saw the day before that, when the lights hit it, I saw it and I watched it go right by. Nothing. And I mean, ooh, I got chicken skin. That's what Hawaiians call it. I mean, I know other people call it that, but Hawaiians typically don't say goosebumps. They say chicken skin. So, I know. Wild, right? So anyways, that was the story of Morgan's Corner. And I do have another story. And it kind of goes with the night marchers, so I'm going to save it. But the story I'm going to talk about happens in the area or on the same area as Morgan's Corner. So, the ghosts of the USS Arizona. Pearl Harbor is a site of immense historical importance, and it is also believed to be haunted by the spirits of those who perished during the attack in 1941. The USS Arizona, which still lies at the bottom of the harbor, is said to be home to many restless souls. Visitors and workers at the memorial have reported seeing ghostly figures standing on the deck of the sunken ship or hearing voices and footsteps even though the area is empty. Some believe these are the spirits of the sailors who never left their posts. Now, I'm sure many people have this theory, and this has been a theory of mine for a while, that when somebody just dies, I mean, like, you're doing your daily business on this ship and all of a sudden, boom, you're dead. I sometimes wonder if their soul knows they're dead. Like they're just trapped in this loophole of, stuff, like, oh, well, this is what I was doing and my memory is there. Like they don't know to move on. And I do feel like sometimes that's a lot of reasons why people have hauntings, because, it's the ghost saying, please see me, please see me. And they're frustrated because they don't realize they're dead. Now, that's not always the case. Some ghosts are just ridiculous and mean. I don't want to say mean, but they're pranksters, right? Or some of them are mean. So just be careful with that. But in the case of the USS Arizona, I also believe in what they call residual hauntings. And residual hauntings are just memory loops, and versus an intelligent haunting, as it's been called by the paranormal people out there, investigators out there. An intelligent haunting is when it communicates back. A residual haunting is when it's just kind of looping through, and just a part of the scenery in a way. So, maybe you see a woman passing through and it could just be, just someone that doesn't realize, that, or just a memory that somehow we've managed to look through the veil and see. So, I wonder how much of that is each one of them, because that was a very traumatic day. And, a lot of people died on the Arizona that day. And as many of you know, at least in the U.S. may know, the Pearl Harbor does have a memorial, and its foundation is the USS Arizona. That one they left entombed there because so many men were trapped inside and died. So it's kind of it's a very solemn and sacred area because it is a graveyard. So if you ever go there, show deep respect. Now, I will say this. I had a lovely conversation. The very first time I went on to the memorial, which is pretty much the last time I went on to the memorial, I was 17. No, I was 18. My mom and I went. She took me, finally got to go on there, and I met a gentleman who served on the Arizona. And we talked because he saw me. I was reading all the things, and, this is a time when family could serve on the same ships. And they had there were some people, and I was looking at the names, and he's like, "Are you okay?" Because I was crying. And I said, I was very overwhelmed by the feeling, and as an empath, I understand that now. But back then I didn't realize that. But I was just very overwhelmed by everything and just whatever feelings were coming at me. And this kind gentleman came up and talked to me. Not a ghost story. He was real. And he served on the Arizona. We talked, and then he says, yes, I am getting older, but he asked me, please never forget. Please never forget. And he thanked me, we hugged, and, he says one day, as he was walking me towards the end of the memorial, he looked down in the water. He said, one day I'll be buried with my brothers. If you were a survivor of the USS Arizona, you have an option to have your ashes cremated and placed on the Arizona. And a lot of servicemen who retired and who were on the Arizona have opted for that. So God bless him, because I am sure he was pretty old back then. And this was 36 years ago. So anyways, the Menehune, or the Menehune, however you want to call it. Though not ghosts in the traditional sense, the Menehune are a race of small, mysterious people who are said to live in the forests and mountains of Hawaii. According to legend, they are master builders who work only at night, constructing fish ponds, temples, and roads in a single evening. While not necessarily malevolent, it's said that if you catch a Menehune in the act of building, they will disappear forever. Some people believe that the Menehune are responsible for ancient, unexplained structures found throughout the islands. Now, I've always thought of them as being like Hawaiian gnomes. Okay, just Hawaiian gnomes. Like literally. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. A lot of people refer to them as Hawaiian leprechauns, but I mean, come on. But I've always thought of them as like Hawaiian gnomes, and I believe fairies and gnomes are considered to be builders as well. So in a way, it feels like they're that type of, being. I don't know how else to put that without being disrespectful. So being, but, anyway, yeah, I mean, so I was telling an older sibling this when I was a kid, so like I said, you could say boo and that would scare me. I grew up in horror movies, so, I was a little bit edgy as a child. But everything scared me. I don't know. It was ridiculous how much everything scared me. But, there was this one legend that says if you bring pork over the Pali Highway, I know everything happens on the Pali Highway, right? Hawaii has, I think, 3 freeways, the H1, the H2, and the H3. And I think 2 of them go over to the other side of the island. There's I think the Liki Liki Highway is the one with the really big long tunnel. The Pali Highway has a tunnel and then a break and then a tunnel. But yeah, because I remember when we were kids, we used to try to hold our breaths through them, right? I think that was a way to keep ourselves from oh my God, we are going through a mountain. So anyways, the legend used to be that if you carried pork over the Pali Highway, that, the Menehune would stall your car and take it from you. But you could not look them in the face. Now, here's the thing. I think growing up, my cousins mixed up the legends of the night marchers and the Menehune. Because it says, well, if you cannot look them in the face, you have to face down. That's what you have to do with the night marchers. And that is my segue into the story of the night marchers. I wanted to save this one for last because they're pretty wow. So, the night marchers, or spirit ranks, o'io, are the deadly ghosts of ancient tribal Hawaiian warriors. The night marchers are the vanguard for a sacred king, chief, or chiefess. Ancient Hawaiians believe that any mortal looking upon or being seen in defiance towards the night marchers will die violently. Barriers placed in the path of the night marchers will not deter them. Some people maintain that if the mortal lies motionless, face down on the ground, they are showing proper respect, fear, and deference to the night marchers, and they will be spared. Additionally, mortals can avoid harm or death from night marchers by being fortunate to have an ancient ancestor marcher present to recognize them. As they encounter the mortal, they will call out na'u, which means mine in Hawaiian. No one in the warrior procession will harm them. So by that they mean, if you are a descendant of a Hawaiian warrior, they will say, na'u, this is my line, don't you dare touch them. So anyways, these are the ones that I would show deep respect to. there have been people who have claimed, and I say claimed, but I don't say that loosely, because I believe them, have seen just looking up at the mountains late at night, maybe they're on their porch drinking their tea or whatever, and they see like lights just floating, but they're not flickering lights. They're kind of like flamey lights. And they believe those are the night marchers. Just now, the night marchers, again, were as they said, the sacred vanguard of the king, chief, or chiefess. So it was their it was their warriors. Each chief and chiefess or king, like King Kamehameha, had their own warriors. But a lot of times what would happen is they didn't want to be seen during the day because, it was a tactical move to move at night. And that's why they became known as the night marchers. So if I remember correctly, don't quote me on that, but I remember hearing about this when I was when I was 12. They had this camp at Kamehameha School. And it was a week-long camp for kids who have, Hawaiian bloodline. And we were allowed to go to learn about our heritage, learn about our culture, learn how to build instruments, learn either to sing or dance the hula. Thank God I didn't have to dance the hula. That would have been a sad thing. But I did get to learn how to sing a song. So we sang the song for the ones who did learn the hula. And we learned about the night marchers there. And, I think it is not something to be blasé about. I don't think it's something to be kind of like, if you're a skeptic, in your face about. I would not touch that one with a 10-foot pole, skeptic or not. And I am not a skeptic, but I would advise people not to do that. It's almost like do not take things from the island without permission. If you see weird lights coming at you and you have no idea what it is and it does not look like it is a natural thing, get down, face down, wait for them to pass. Other people who have not have said that, the stories that have been relayed from other people of people who have encountered night marchers, one person who did kind of survive almost intact, I would say. I believe the story I heard, because I was watching it on a documentary, that they were trying to find the night marchers. And he was a soldier, and they recognized him as being a warrior, so they left him be. But apparently his hair went white overnight. And, he talked to this one gentleman about it because he was accompanied by a Hawaiian elder, but he would not talk to anybody else. Somebody else that they had interviewed the family of had run into a night marchers, and they basically went nuts. I mean, they lost their mind and ended up being institutionalized. And this is all within the last 50 years. So if you've ever seen what a Hawaiian helmet looks like, a warrior helmet, that alone can be pretty terrifying. Okay, it is basically a gourd with eyes and a nose piece cut out so they can breathe, obviously, and see. But, I would say that it probably buries your face pretty well. And so, if you're wearing a helmet and you're a ghost, people probably cannot see your face. But who knows, right? Because, their whole identity was to be the protectors of their king, chief, or chiefess. So, they're going to come balls to the wall, right? Scary at you, even as living beings. So, the story that I saw yesterday was pretty awesome. So, I can't remember where I accidentally closed my computer before I found where I got this, but it was an article that somebody wrote in Hawaii. And it says, aside from the hauntings and the eerie feelings along the Nu'uanu Drive, there are other things more ancient and more spiritual. A few years ago, I met author and paranormal enthusiast David Weatherly. David has a breadth of knowledge and a calm, cool energy about him, which makes conversations fun and enlightening. While showing him around the island, I shared some history of Hawaii and stories about haunted locations. I drove up Nu'uanu Drive and parked on the wrong side of the road in front of the Board of Water Supply building. There, I began to explain the Battle of Nu'uanu and the history of the night marchers. As if on cue, a strange mist appeared before us in the middle of the road. Really strange. It hovered in front of us like a large floating sphere. Its lower tendrils drifted upward, then curled inward, folding back into its center as if breathing in itself. That's an interesting kind of fog, David mused. I don't think that's fog, I replied. As it approached us, the mist became thicker, almost more solid-looking. Instinctively, we sat still and said nothing. The ghostly sphere seemed to move with intent as it slowly passed us, constantly churning in a slow, unnatural loop. We watched through the car mirrors as it glided into the forest and then back out again, continuing along the road, never dissipating, still in the shape of an odd floating ball. We wouldn't talk about it for the rest of the drive until we got to Zippy's. Oh, Zippy's. Then, all David had to say while nodding and chewing on his food was, night marchers. Had to be. Another witness to strange things on the lonely road is now retired HPD officer, or HP, Honolulu police officer, and respected friend. On a rainy November night in 2019, I received a phone call a little after midnight. It was my friend, the police officer I'll call M. There was a bit of hesitation in his voice as he asked me if I could come out and bless his car. Tonight, I asked. He replied, yeah, right now if can. Without pause, I told M that I'd be right there. Since we were both up, my wife came with me and we met him at the top of Nu'uanupali Drive where he was parked. M was supervising traffic while a construction crew worked on repaving the Pali Highway. When we arrived, M was waiting outside his car. We shook hands and he immediately began to explain that just before calling me, he was sitting in his car and was amazed to see an army of pueo, Hawaiian short-eared owls, fly by, heading Makai, which is towards the ocean. I think Mauka is towards the mountains, on Nu'uanupali Drive. Shortly after, night marchers quietly followed the path set by the pueo. M said he was so stunned by what he saw that he hadn't immediately noticed the lone pueo flying around in his car, which he said was impossible since his windows were rolled up. That's when he jumped out of his car and called me. Though the road has changed, its history continues to linger. From ancient legends to modern tragedies, Nu'uanupali Drive still carries the weight of its past as the stories of hauntings pass from one generation to the next, reminders that some places remember. And that is the same drive that we talked about earlier where Morgan's Corner is. Now, there is one last legend of Morgan's Corner. And this one is, nobody even knows where this one came from. But a girl and a boy, probably, when I was told the story, it was back in the 50s, maybe the 60s. But they were driving down the old Pali Road, and all of a sudden they ran out of gas. So the boyfriend pulls to the side and says, pulls under a tree and says, okay, I'll be back. I'm going to go get gas. So he gets out, and of course it's a very windy night, and when you're parked under the trees tend to scrape, everything around you. And so eventually, as the girl was waiting, because it was late at night, she fell asleep. The next morning, or as she was falling asleep, she could hear scratching on the top of the car. And she's like, oh, great. It's really windy. The branches are just scraping the hell out of this car. So the next morning after she woke up to a policeman knocking on her window. And he says, okay, he's all, get out. I need you to get out of the car and I need you to follow me back to this car. And whatever you do, do not look back. Do not look back. So she was like, well, where's my boyfriend? And they're all just, we'll talk about this later. Do not look back. So as they're driving away, what is our first instinct when someone tells us not to look? We look, right? Because curiosity sometimes beats logic. But when she turned back, she saw that the scraping was not the branches of the tree, but instead her boyfriend hanging upside down from the tree, and he had been slit open. And his nails were what were scratching the top of the car all night as she slept. And so, anyways, of course that story scared me, and it just added to the Pali Highway. And if, I saved a picture that I'm going to put in the comments on the Facebook Live, because I am telling you, I was telling older sibling, I said, driving up the Pali towards the lookout, it's beautiful because it's lush and green. It's basically a rainforest, okay? But the canopy is low, and it kind of, even on a sunny day, it can make the road look a little bit darker than it normally should be, because, the canopy is, and I'm not sure if it's still like that. I'm assuming it is, because these are some ancient trees that you probably don't want to cut down and piss off the natives, the native ghosts. So, but sometimes I wonder now, is that feeling because, we feel we're in a tunnel of trees, or is it because something might be with us? There's one last story I heard yesterday while I was on my rabbit hole visit. Thanks, Sammy. That's a great ghost story too. Too creepy. Very creepy, right? Can you imagine looking back and you're like, oh. And then for the rest of your life, you're all, I shouldn't have looked back. I shouldn't have looked back. And yet, the next time someone says, don't look, that's the first thing we're going to do again. So anyways, the last story I heard was about this gentleman. He was, it was from the Honolulu Police Department. They have their own channel, but it feels like about between 2 and 10 years ago, they did a bunch of ghost stories. Whoops, sorry. They did a bunch of ghost stories. Now, here's the thing. Older sibling and I used to watch this show called Paranormal 911. And we still kind of watch it when we don't know what else to watch, because we love the ghosty shows. But Paranormal 911 is like paramedics, firemen, police officers, all those guys. But a lot of them are retired, because the ones who are still on the job do not want to talk about it, because it kind of wigs them out. So when we do Supernatural San Diego, I have a police officer story for you, but we'll have to save it for Supernatural San Diego. So anyways, this gentleman was a security guard at the training facility. So the police academy, basically, training facility. And, they had people just, because you don't want people being all sketchy and wrecking the place, right? So this other officer is telling the story, and they do a reenactment. And so on the SWAT building, this was his friend of many, many years. And, one day he calls me and he says, oh yeah, I was walking around doing my checks and I hear like this wood banging. And, and he's like, so then he starts walking, and all of a sudden, like, all the dogs in the canine training area are barking like their heads off. So he knows he's not the only one hearing this. So he goes around the corner to see the SWAT building, and all the shutters are just opening and closing on their own. It's not a windy night. There is not a lick of wind, period. But the shutters are just opening and closing it, opening and closing it, opening and closing. I'll put that video in the comments too. I'll put a few videos in the comments just so you guys can watch it for yourself on the Facebook Live. So just remember, all the lives are public. So if you're watching this somewhere else and you do have a Facebook account, you can come through here and find the links and the videos to YouTube, or you can just look up HPD. I think that's their channel, HPD. But you're going to have to go back a ways. But I do think they have a library or a playlist of just their paranormal stuff. So it's pretty cool. And once you click on one, you're going to get all the ghost stories of Hawaii in your algorithm. So anyways, and yeah, you probably end up like me 2 hours later going down the rabbit hole. It's after midnight and you're like, oh, I got to go to bed. So, but anyways, they're pretty short stories. So he tells his friend this is what happened, because, he walked, or he called out and he said, is anybody in there? Now, the shutters are doing their own thing, so, it's kind of, I want to say brazen. That was the word I was looking for earlier when I said don't be, whatever. But don't, he was pretty brazen. I mean, I would be like, and I believe in this stuff, and I'm pretty well-footed for the most part. But I think that would really catch me off guard, especially when you're potentially alone. So anyways, he goes and looks, he calls out, and all the shutters just stop. So he walks up to the building and he kind of looks in. He's all, is anybody in there? And, just kind of doing his security checks. Nothing. So he goes back to work. Nothing. No more incidents for the rest of the night. On a different night, so he tells his friend, and his friend says, I would quit, or I would go find a different, I would be reassigned somewhere on security detail. So on another occasion, he's doing his rounds again, and he hears this beeping. And it's like a horn honking, but it turns out it's one of the motorcycle horns honking. So he goes and he's looking for the sound. He's following the sound, and he follows the sound, and there's a little boy sitting on one of the motorcycles. And he's all, hey, what you doing on there? And he's all, stop that. And the boy just kind of stops, but he looks at him. And he kind of gives him like this look. Now, I don't know if this is the look he gave him, but the actor that was playing this kid was like, without the fingers. And he says, and so he's just kind of leaves. I'll stop that. And the kid looks at him like, and then he disappears. But the guy still didn't quit. So, this guy is just rock star, right? So anyways, one night, this is the last night, because he tells his friend about that one too. And he's like, and you're still there? And he's like, yeah. He's all, it's okay. I got this. So one night he's all alone. He's closed the gates up to the police training facility. They're all locked. That's part of his job, make sure they're all locked. And he figures, well, you know what? I'm just going to sit in the breezeway for a little bit. I've made all my checks. I'm just going to chill and watch everything from here. And then he sees like a woman in white in the parking lot. And right? All the women are in white. He sees a woman in white in the parking lot. And he kind of looking, and he's just like, he calls out to her like, can I help you? Are you okay? And then he realizes, how could she have gotten in? The gates are locked. And yeah, so he's just, But then all of a sudden it's like she starts walking towards him again, and she just disappears. So, he gets up to start his rounds again, thinking, whoa, okay, that was strange. And now she's behind him. And she starts walking at him again. And at this point, he can see on her face that she looks angry. Like she looks mad, right? And she's coming at him. When she's just within a few feet of him, she disappears again. So now he's just really beside himself. And he's just kind of like, what the hell? And he sits down and he kind of like head in hands, just trying to process all of this. First the shutters, then the kid on the bike, and now this woman. And when he looks up, she's sitting right across from him at the table. Now, mind you, this is not an urban legend. This is a man's actual, evidence. And, after that, he left. He's like, no, I left. He left. And his friend was telling the story. His friend telling the story, he was a retired officer he had retired after about 31 years on the force, and he also worked at the training center. That's how he knew this gentleman. And so that was it. Yeah, he joined the police reserves and was assigned to the training center to help train the new recruits. So that's how he met the security guard. And so they were talking, and the security guard has not been back since. And the officer says, I would have been gone after the first one. He's like, he was pretty brave. He's like, I would have been gone after the first one. But he's all, yeah, he is not. He works on a different side of the island, same security company, but he will not go back to the training facility. He will not, absolutely will not. Which makes me wonder, it seems like they were trying to get rid of him, doesn't it? It kind of feels like, they were just like, nope, we don't want you here. And I don't know what they wanted. I don't know if there have been any other stories of the security guards that have had any problems there, or if they just don't want to tell anybody because, people don't want to look crazy. Okay. And so they keep these things to themselves, not realizing that, even if you're a skeptic, there is a very distinct possibility that hauntings are real. Now, if you're a person like me, I've had enough experiences in my life that, I can't explain them away. I've tried. I will tell you this. I am a firm believer in the paranormal, but I also do my best to try to debunk something to see, is that paranormal or is it just the building settling? And when you hear those knocks or those creaks or those snaps, and, sometimes you just know, or the hair on your arm stand up, or the hair on your neck stands up. I have had a lot of experiences. And in my personal opinion, in my Aloha perspective, I have no reason to believe that ghosts do not exist. I even had an experience when I was in England, and it was wow, but I was grateful because when, as I mentioned, after one of my friends picked me up from the airport, the couple I met, it was the husband. He picked me up from the airport to kind of acclimate me, show me around, show me where his parents live in case I felt like I had any problems, that I knew where to go, And he told his dad, and he's like, yep, you're always welcome here. I probably couldn't have found my way back anyway, but I'm sure that if I called my friend, he would have said, okay, take this road, this road, this road. So they only lived probably a mile or two from where I was staying. But anyway, I remember after he left, I didn't want him to think I was nuts. All right. So it turns out later he had some ghost stories from me, and he knew that I was totally into the paranormal, and we, you know, he shared some stories when we went out around Stonehenge and Avebury. But on this night after he left, I just turned around and I said, I don't know your name yet, but thank you for letting me stay here for the next week. And all of a sudden it just felt warm and calm. Now, mind you, there was only a heater in the room. Okay. So, I was pretty much, you know, bundled up anywhere else in this tiny little flat. But I felt safe. And that night, or the next night, between Friday and Saturday, my first full night there, or my first full day there, I had a horrible dream that somebody was attacking me in this flat. And yeah, all of a sudden I hear a girl's voice, and then I see one of my uncles in my dream, and they're just kind of like beating on whatever this was that was trying to harm me. And I just remember waking up and going, thank you. And then they said her name, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's your name, I guess. So, and then I felt peaceful and calm the rest of my stay there. I never felt scared. There was no door to the bedroom. And I can't tell you, I do not like sleeping with the door open. It kind of wigs me out if I'm by myself. So, cause you know, I have had many an occasion where I've woken up and either the door has opened and closed on its own, with the window shut, all right, you know, so there's no way that could have happened, or someone's standing in the doorway. So it's just kind of like, so yeah, those are my stories, and I'm sticking to it. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed Haunted Hawaii, Urban Legendy Hawaii. Yeah, I know the 7 creepiest urban legends and ghost stories of Hawaii, and a few of my own personal ones. I do have more. I even reached out on Facebook for people to tell me if they have any ghost stories, and that I'd keep them anonymous, but nobody wanted to share any. So anyways, older sibling has some too. We'll save that for the LA version. Since, you know, that's where she grew up. So anyways, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Please, please, please have a safe and wonderful weekend. I will see you back here Monday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public under Shelly Marie Lucas. And you can find me on YouTube under the Aloha Perspective with Shelly Marie, and everything just kind of filters out from there. All right. So if you're finding this elsewhere and you end up back on YouTube, please feel free to click and subscribe. And again, as I said, I will go ahead and share some of these things in the comments that I was watching last night. They're fun. They're a fun watch. They're a fun watch. So if you have time and you're not easily frightened, you know, watch it. Or, you know, go to a mall, go to a populated area, go to a coffee shop, put on your earbuds and just watch them. They're all a little bit of short stories, but some of the reenactments are pretty freaky. Like the Lady in White, whoever they found to play the Lady in White, she was pretty, ominous. Extremely, it's like she would have scared me. All right. Now, I'm going to leave you with this last thought. So the Lady in White with long flowing gray hair has often been said to appear to different people. And a lot of people say that it's Pele, the fire goddess, that she can come either in, you know, a red dress or a white dress. But usually when she's dressed in white, she looks like someone's tutu, which is a grandmother in Hawaii. Excuse me. So anyways, I hope again, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Have a safe and wonderful weekend, and I will see you back here Monday. Thank you for watching.